61 confessions. 61 confessions.
60.
That's the argument. That's the evidence in the Delphi case out in Indiana. RichardAllen, they say, confessed 61 times. But, and there's a big but, can you trust these confessions? What do they sound like? What do they look like? We're going to take a much closer look to see if you can trust them, if the jury will trust the confessions of RichardAllen in the Delphi Red Rum trial. I'm Vinny Politan. This is the Tangent Podcast. Al Wunsch is with us. Jonesy is with us. Get ready, get set. This is going to be a wild ride.
It's Vinny and the Tangent, True Crime Podcast. Vinny has the blue eyes, Al cracks the jokes. Jonesy stays behind his shades, entertaining all the folks. It's Vinny and the Tangent, True Crime Podcast. Load up all your comments, hit those super chats. Let's go smash that like button, so we can all have a blast. Vinny, Allen, Jonesy on the job. They're the Sugar Hill gang of true crime. They're telling stories of days gone by. They take crime and turn into a good old time. It's Vinny and the Tangent.
All right, folks, here we go. It's Friday. It's getting to be a regular thing. We've been pretty consistent with Fridays at 12:30 for the Tangent Podcast when everyone's in town. Great to see everyone. I'm going to talk about this Delphi case, and I have to warn you ahead of time. No cameras, no microphones, no electronics inside that courtroom. So,
I thought you meant us.
What's that?
I thought you meant us. We have no cameras. No. We do have cameras. Okay.
You've got cameras. And so all the information that we're getting is through pen and paper notes written by the various reporters inside, including Barbara McDonald from Court TV. We've got a woman, Caitlin Kendall, from our affiliate, RTV, out in Indiana, that's been getting it as well. So that's how we're getting the information. I don't like it. It makes me angry. By the way, Jonesy, the judge's name?
What's that?
Judge Frangoul.
Frangoul,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
There's a costume shop in Rutherford, New Jersey that's called Fun Ghoul.
Yes. I've been there numerous times. I used to go
Yeah,
there.
but I got the best Fun Ghoul story of all of you guys.
Okay.
Does it involve Uncle Floyd?
No. It involves my wedding.
Oh, really?
3 wardrobe changes at my wedding. One of them was crafted by the seamstress at Fun Ghoul.
Oh, cool.
Really? And what was that?
It was a Prince Charming with a nice sash coming across. It was amazing.
Yes. Very nice.
Thank you, Jonesy.
I got a Louis XIV outfit there once for one of my first live radio broadcast remotes, because I got it in my head I was going to dress like a rock star and have multiple outfit change. So I went to Fun Ghoul. Eventually, we started making our own stuff.
Bingo. So the state rested in the Delphi case, so they've put in their evidence, and the 61 confessions is really what it's all about, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because this is a big case. It's probably, if there were cameras inside the courtroom, it'd be the biggest trial of this year, bigger than Karen Reed.
Yeah,
bigger than Karen Reed.
You're probably right.
No doubt. But Judge Francis C. Gull. Oh, Judge Siegel. Francis Siegel. C is her middle initial, I believe. I prefer to her Fran Gull. Yeah.
I prefer bagels myself.
Exactly. So you ready to jump into this, Al?
I'm ready to jump in. You know me, Ben. I'm always ready to go. But I just want to say, hey, welcome, and hope everyone enjoyed trick-or-treating last night and Halloween. Had belated happy Halloween, belated happy Cabbage Night, and I got all my candy and I'm ready to go.
You're ready to go.
All
right.
So Cabbage Night.
Yeah, the night before Halloween was always called Cabbage Night by me.
Interesting. It's called different things in different areas. We used to call it, in Bergen County, I was told they called it Goosey Night, but you're from Bergen County.
Goosey.
So
I'm from
You
Bergen
see-
County, and we always called it Cabbage Night, and then sometimes
call-
Mischief Night.
Mischief. We called it mischief. I've heard of All Hell's Night.
But
Fascinating.
you know what? When you got older, you realized that the pikers went out on the night before. That the real demons would go out on Halloween because the cops weren't looking for it then. And around here they have you couldn't buy eggs and you couldn't buy shaving cream.
Shaving cream.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Al, if you outlaw eggs, then only outlaws will have eggs.
That's exactly right. That's a very good theory.
I was just recounting a Mischief Night story to some friends. They were talking about the antics that go on, and I cited Court TV. We covered a case many years ago of a guy who had his it was Ohio. He had his trees toilet papered, as they say. You throw the bathroom tissue over the tree branches, bathroom tissue, and I think he shot them, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was Mischief Night gone really bad.
Get off my lawn.
And then Court TV, was it last year or the year before? I got in trouble because I wore a costume on the closing arguments. Yes, they wouldn't let me wear it. They said when we used to do this thing where we would have these different fun stories come on. I could put the costume back on for that part of the segment.
Right, yeah. Because Al, you can't be wearing costumes and talking about crime and justice.
I'll take the glasses off if that's what's keeping me off Court TV. So where did you go?
O'Donnell had an egg thrown at her house last night.
Oh,
really?
Wasn't me.
Yeah.
Al, what did you go as? What did you dress as?
I went as the female Indian scout of Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea. I always try to bring a historical tint to any and all my costumes. Year before, I was the Grand Duchess Anastasia.
What kind of tint?
Historical tint.
The Civil War to civil rights and all the revolution fights. World War I and World War II.
Big one.
I'll always knows who is who. It's this day in history. This day in history. History. Now let's listen to his story.
All right, what's your story today, Al?
Okay, well, on November 1st, 1950, the Truman assassination attempt happened in Washington, D.C.
I didn't even know there was one.
Nor
Yes,
did
there
I.
was. There was actually,
Wow.
it's the only gunfight in Secret Service history. Okay, so two assassins that were Puerto Rican nationalists decided that they were going to assassinate Truman, okay, because they wanted to secure Puerto Rican independence from the United States. At this time, the White House was getting renovations, so Truman was staying at the Blair House. The Blair House is the presidential guest house that dignitaries will stay at and things along those lines. So Truman was living there with his family. And Oscar Collazo and a guy by the name of Torresola, both men decided to just walk into the Blair House. They were stopped by the Secret Service, and then a gunfight went forward. Torresola,
And I guess the Secret Service won.
well, Torresola is killed by Leslie Caffett, Caffett. I bring this up because Caffett died as a result of the gun battle.
Oh,
He was shot 4 times, okay, and still was able to get himself up, brace himself against the wall, and then shoot Torresola, who was a hitman, shoot him in the head, killing him, and then he died shortly thereafter.
So Leslie's a man.
So Leslie,
Yeah.
there is in the Blair House. There's actually a plaque for that, and one of the rooms is named after him.
I've never met a man named Leslie.
Nor have I.
Leslie Nielsen.
Oh,
Who?
right.
Leslie Nielsen.
Good.
Oh, the
point.
actor.
Leslie Howard. Leslie, another famous actor with the name Leslie.
To me, I only know Leslie who are women.
Now, Leslie Nielsen. I mean, I can't do any better than that one. I mean,
No,
Leslie
that's
Howard,
me.
you might not remember, but he's a very famous British actor who also fought in World War II.
Is Leslie short for something?
No, it's Leslie
Oh,
Coppett.
no, I may know Leslie's, but they go by Les, like Nessman.
Les Nessman. Yeah,
Les
that might
Nessman.
be. I think that was Lester.
Les
was
Nessman
Nessman.
and more
Lester.
music.
All right, so Coppett, was a true hero. Collazo was captured. He was tried and sentenced to D-Pen. Truman himself commuted the sentence to life in prison, and then
Really?
that was later commuted by Jimmy Carter to time served, and he died in 1984.
Wait. So not only he gets off of the deep end and then ends up just like walking out a free man.
We walked
That's
out in
amazing.
1980. He died.
I was amazed by that when it happened with John Hinckley, because like, I mean, I know,
But at least Hinckley was found not guilty.
but the thing is,
Right.
like, you tried to assassinate a president, like, and
Right.
you walk. That's
And
amazing.
the guy walks.
Stunning.
Yeah, and he had actually wounded. He wounded
Yeah.
one of the police officers, and Collazo was actually shot 3 times and survived. He died in 1984 in Puerto Rico. The sentence was commuted by Jimmy Carter.
That's a
And
disgrace.
so that's the history on that. We all say, just sort
Let
of
me ask you
memory.
this, Al. The Secret Service, Leslie lost his life, right?
Yes, he did.
Did Jimmy Carter speak with Leslie's family before letting the person out?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I bet he didn't.
No record of that. But
bet
I
he
mean,
didn't.
Collazo did not shoot at. Collazo was at a different part. His
Doesn't
gun
matter.
barrel was not with. I don't disagree with that.
In
But
for a penny, in for a pound.
his first battle was not with Coppett, who unfortunately, as I said, shot 4 times. What, you talk about a hero? Shot 4 times. He could have just laid there. He propped himself up.
Could you say
And
impacted instead? I think YouTube will like that word better.
Okay, he was impacted 4 times, which was a true travesty, but a true hero. And today in true crime history,
Right?
we have another Jersey story. Okay, Richard Biegenwald. Okay, the Jersey Shore thrill kill individual. Okay, he red-rummed 6 women. I mean, excuse me, 6 people, 4 women, 2 men, from 1958 to 1983. And on this day, he red-rummed Maria Cialella, a 17-year-old young lady who had been shot and cut apart on 11/1/1981, and buried her at his mother's house in Staten
Wait a
Island.
minute. We had a serial person in Jersey in the 80s, and I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah, Richard Biegenwald. Yeah, he.
When did they
Biegenwald-
catch him?
They got him in the mid 80s. They got
Mid
him.
80s. Okay. Wow.
But this guy, you want to talk about a situation. This guy had been in jail for 17 years for red rum and was released, and then came back and then started getting back on track. So that is our tragedy for poor Maria Cialella, 17-year-old girl who was so, should not have had this situation, and being having her body desecrated the way it was is just horrendous. And this piece of garbage is known as the Jersey Shore thrill killer.
Wow.
So, on a brighter note, I stayed at the Truman House in Key West once, and it was fabulous. That was
Okay.
that was his alternate White House.
Oh, down there in Key West, and Nixon was in Key Biscayne.
Oh, and so was
Right.
I believe also, Nixon was Key Biscayne. But I wanted to just bring up one thing about what happened with regards to Truman. So Truman hears the shots going forward, and Truman then runs to the window and opens up the blinds, and is that absolutely like there in a perfect position to possibly be shot. The Secret Service agent starts screaming for him to close the blinds and get down. Okay, and he stood there for a period of time. And when they asked him about why he did that, he goes, "Listen, The Germans were shooting me at World War I, and they didn't hit me. I have nothing to fear about these two guys.
Was he
True
hosting one of
rumor.
his poker? Was he hosting one of his poker games at the time?
No, I don't think they were doing that. The Blair House didn't give him the ability to have a lot of people there. I mean, it's a beautiful house, and you can go visit it. And then, as I said, you'll see the plaque to the fallen hero, Leslie Coffin, and and see the room that's dedicated in his memory.
Right. Hey, Adam Drives Helen is with us. And here's what he's saying, and a lot of people are saying this. The more that comes out in trial, the more I think Richard Allen is innocent. This is in the Delphi case. At the least, the state has botched this whole thing, and he should walk.
Wow.
I'm hearing a lot of this, folks. I'm hearing a lot of this. Let's get to, I'll tell you quickly the story. Okay. So let's get quickly to the story. For those of you who don't know it, it's about these two young girls. They're in Delphi, Indiana, small town, less than 3,000. They decide to go. There's a day off from school. It's a little bit warm, like in the 50s in February 2017 in Delphi, Indiana. So they go for a hike, and they go to this bridge called the Monon High Bridge. And it's one of these crickety wooden bridges with like little slats, no guardrails or anything. And it goes over this big ravine. And the girls go over it. But as they're going over it, they're being followed by a man. They refer to him as the bridge guy. And what you see on the left-hand side here is the actual video. And so they take some pictures and some video, and in the background of the video is the man on the left here. What prosecutors say happened is that this man then forced the girls down the hill off the trail and had a gun, a nug, and forced them and kept control of them with the nug. And then his plan was to essay the two girls. He did not end up doing that, but ended up with a knife slicing the throat regions of both girls. One is found naked. The other is found wearing the other young girl's clothing.
Wow.
Okay. So it's a sick story, right? So that's the basic story. Now, the man it's a mystery for 5 years, but the man who's arrested, they released this image. You see the image that we have right here? They released that image to the public, not a video, but just the image, asking for the public's help. And once they released that image, Richard Allen calls the tip line.
Right.
To say that he was there. Now, they got a bunch of tips. I would think this would be a big one, but apparently the police there are overwhelmed, and they have a guy who's like a conservation officer. He's not like a real detective or police. He's more of like a conservation officer. I don't.
What is a conservation officer?
Like he works in the woods or whatever at the parks and stuff.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like he's not
park ranger. A park ranger.
Like a park ranger, but
Like
I don't even know if he's to that level.
Like Yogi Bear's friend. Well, he was a ranger.
Yes. So they give this guy a whole bunch of tips to follow up on. One of them is the one that Richard Allen called in. So he contacts Richard Allen and ends up meeting him for like 10 minutes at I don't know where they were, at a restaurant or a grocery store or something, because Richard Allen was out. The other guy was out. All right, let's just meet here. So they meet, and he talks to me, and he does a report. And he files a report. The guy says he was there, that he sees 3 girls, etc., whatever. And the guy files his report. He's done. The investigators do nothing to follow up on him. Nothing. They do nothing. They don't interview. No detective talks to a man who said he was there that day. And this is like 2 days into the investigation. The investigation goes on for 5 years, and it's like a big mystery. And at no point did anyone go back to say, well, who was actually there that day? And then there's another volunteer who's helping in the investigation, who is now digitizing and scanning all the original leads, which I guess were handwritten. And when she does, she comes across this one. But somewhere on the page, it's a typewritten page the report, but then in handwriting is the word cleared. Somebody cleared him, but we don't know who wrote that on his little interview tip page. But she's like, well, he's there. I think detectives should see this. So she gives it to the detectives as she's in the middle of 2 years of scanning all this material. And the detectives finally do a follow-up. And then like very quickly, he becomes a suspect and ends up getting arrested. Like the investigation was blown by the local investigators there. Absolutely blown. So if you're looking at this picture and you're wondering why I have this picture up, this is the bridge guy. And then there's this guy on the right over here who is Ron Logan. He owns the property where the girls were found. He lied about where he was that day. And he had someone come up with a fake alibi for him. Somehow, some way, somebody got him to dress up like this and take a picture. I don't know why. And people are wondering, is he this guy? Some people believe he is.
Are you serious?
But he's not the guy who got arrested.
Posed?
I think he
But this
posed for the
was
picture.
posed?
Yeah, he probably got
Really?
paid. Yeah, because it was in like the Daily Mail or one of those, so he probably got paid for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So would you pose for that picture if you were actually the guy?
I wouldn't
Well,
pose for that
weird,
picture. I wouldn't pose for that if I wasn't the guy.
weirder things have happened that people, think that if they do this, maybe that takes the scent off and goes from there. So, I mean, I certainly can't rule out the fact that people are stupid enough to do dumb things in the hopes that this is going to prove that they weren't the red rummer. So, but it's clear. I can tell you, I don't think it's him. I mean, he looks taller than the one on the bridge, and even though he's given weird reasons and he basically gave false alibis and things along those lines, he may have been doing something, but I don't think it was red rum.
Okay. All right.
But
Well, yeah,
let's go back to the
his
situation.
story is that he didn't have his license and he was driving because he had a DUI.
Well,
And
that's a pretty minor.
That's a pretty serious, and that's a pretty serious offense. I know in New Jersey that's a mandatory jail time for that. If you were caught driving while you've been suspended pursuant to a DUI or a DWI, then you are looking at jail time and another 1 to 2 year loss of driving privileges.
Yeah.
Well, when it's an alibi though for a red rum, like I'll take the suspension in the 2 years.
Yeah. So they're the pictures. Okay. So where we are now in the case, the state is rested, but they finished with all the confessions, all the alleged confessions, including some recordings. So I wanted to sort of lay some of the groundwork, some of the context for the confessions. So I have some information from court here that I'm going to go through piece by piece. So the former warden. So here's a fact, and this is weird. He was being held in a state penitentiary, not in a local jail. They sent him like a couple hours away to a state penitentiary while he's awaiting jail. So he's in there with convicted people rather than being in a jail waiting for his trial. Now, the warden of that jail was fired from his position or asked to leave or whatever, or step down, whatever it is, John Gallipo. But he testified that Allen sent him a note in March or April of 2023 saying that he took the lives of the girls, but provided no details thereof. Now, there's some more information that I want to give you from this guy, Gallipo. Okay. So he got one of the confessions, right? Other people who are hearing, who say they heard confessions are some of the guards, former and current Department of Correction employee witnesses, 7 of them. The companions for Allen who were keeping an eye on him so he wouldn't end himself, observed and logged everything he said and did. 6 guards said that Allen gave generic confessions like, I killed Abby and Libby. One guard said, Allen said he committed the red rums with a box cutter that he stole from CVS. That's where he works, and tossed it in the trash there. That same guard was fired for lying on his application to get a job at the Department of Corrections. One guard
It's so easy Pete, to be fired for that job because they can't find people. So
another guard said who heard Allen say that he was responsible, admitted on the stand that his written report was less detailed than what he told investigators. So these are the ones that are just, okay, I heard him say this. Those are some of the confessions. Then other confessions are recorded. But I wanted to put this up because Allen was in the Epstein watch cell the entire time he was there, 13 months. The cell he was held in is in a unit for offenders who get in trouble. Most of them are there for a few days or weeks, but the warden said he'd never seen anyone held there that long. So 13 months he's in the unit where they keep the ones who are
incorrigible,
the troublemakers, like the hole. Like he's in the hole for 13 months. Al, how unusual is that? And
that's extremely unusual. I mean, that's almost like something you see out of Papillon. I mean, where you've got a prisoner that's been put in there, and that can have some severe effects on you. Now, granted,
Papillon was eating bugs, wasn't he?
Yes, well, there was very limited food on the different places that he was sent to, including the French Guiana, which was Devil's Island. But you take a look at people who have been, and I've studied and interviewed a number of prisoners of war from Vietnam that were put in the Hanoi Hilton, and when you're alone during that time. Now, granted, they were also being tortured. He was not. The mind does play tricks with you, and you try anything humanly possible to try to get out of that. But he did have his privileges, though. So, I mean, he did have opportunity to use his phone, which, I mean, he probably used to his detriment. He did get a chance to go out and get by himself, but he would be able to walk and get fresh air, and he was able to access with people. He had, a psychiatrist or psychologist that was.
Well, let's talk about her. Let's talk about this. Is Dr. Monica Walla, the prison psychologist, and she is the one who provides the most incriminating confession.
Well,
wait. Her testimony about Richard Allen's confession to her, the prison psychologist, is the most important one. But she also testified that the lights were never turned off inside this small cell where he was. They were monitoring him constantly and was in solitary confinement for 13 months. Inmates are meant to be in solitary confinement for a maximum of 30 days.
But the difference is he was also on a suicide watch, okay? Because he kept claiming he was going to kill himself. He kept claiming that he was going to off himself, or anything along those lines. So when you have a scenario where you have a prisoner who's put himself and made those kind of comments, and they have reason to believe that even if they don't have reason to believe, they're mandated to keep him separate from the rest of the.
With the lights on?
Well, yeah. How else can you see? How else can you see him?
So
I mean, Jonesy had a question.
I can tell you this: in Bergen County, I'll just tell you this: anyone that's on, self-offing watch,
unaliving,
is stripped and is forced to wear like a schmata that they have on that cannot possibly be utilized as a device that could possibly take one's life. So, that's the way it works in most of the jails that I deal with. That's what they do. And they're in a room with the lights on, because you cannot, and you're supposed to be watching them, monitoring every 20 minutes. And they have a log on that kind of stuff. I'm talking about Bergen County and New Jersey. And they have to look and then make sure that the person is not trying to
Unalive
eat it
themselves.
all. So,
So this-
I mean, if he keeps making those complaints and those threats, I don't see how they could they can't put him back and mainline him. They can't mainline him. He can't have a roommate because he's a danger to himself or others.
So I
the
this
lights have
came
to
up.
be on. It's the only way you can see if he's doing something.
Go ahead, Jonesy.
So
I'm
this
sorry.
came up in the Menendez. No problem, Mal. This came up in the Menendez case. I always thought there was a psychologist-patient privilege, and I was thinking, well, maybe it doesn't exist in prison, but it did come up in the Menendez case when Eric admitted to a psychologist what happened. So there is no privilege.
Well, there's an issue. It was litigated in this case, and that was a question I was asking on my show last night. And apparently, there's some carve out that is accepted by the courts and is part of her ethical treatment that Dr. Monica Walla, as a prison psychologist, if anyone incriminates themselves, she rats on them.
So was Eric's
Is that the formal way of saying it?
Well,
You incriminate yourself, she rats you out.
Well, I get like attorney-client privilege, like psychologist patient privilege, like
priest penitent,
like I get it. Like I want the guilty people to be convicted. I get it, but I also don't like slippery slopes. And if we start piercing the attorney-client privilege, which I've seen done in some cases, I don't like that. I think that's outrageous. It undermines our entire system of justice, and in this case, it would undermine our system of mental health. Like, I'm not showing sympathy, but what I always look at the big picture.
Well,
And
the Menendez difference was that they the nutsy doctor that they were seeing was convinced they were going to off him.
Right.
So that, then that automatically.
That's a future crime.
Right. It's a future crime. So then they have an obligation, an alleged obligation ethically, to be able to say something about that. And so that's how they got around that one.
Yeah.
In this one, it's far less clear to me how he could be sitting there.
Let's be honest. It's sketch.
Absolutely.
I don't understand it. Like, and then she works for the state, so she's basically an arm of the state as well.
That's right. And is he given a warning about that? Is he given a Miranda about that? Is he given,
right?
You have the right to remain silent, or you can answer. Understand this: anything you say to me can and will be used against you in a court of law. Right. She is working for the prison. She's working for the state.
Yeah.
So she might as well be a police officer.
Yeah.
Well, she acts as one. So like an undercover, like it's almost like she's undercover as a psychologist. So the confession that RichardAllen gave to her includes a fact that the prosecution is saying nobody knew.
Right.
That he goes to one area where he's going to attempt the essay, and it's a wooded area, but there's a private road, which is like an extension of one of the property owners, because they have sprawling properties here. And he's coming home from work in his white van, and he spooks RichardAllen. So at that moment, Allen, that's when he panics, he moves, and he doesn't commit the essay, and he commits the red rum. But it's this white van that nobody, according to prosecutors, nobody knew about. Now, There is some debate in the true crime community whether people knew about this or not, and whether or not they were talking about it in podcasts and on social media. To me, that's not 100% clear, because I'm getting mixed messaging on that. But the word from the Indiana State Trooper who testified was this was a fact that only 3 people would know. 2 of them are gone, and the third is RichardAllen, the red rummer.
Right. Right.
So that's why this one's so important,
and that's significant. And that is a significant part of the state's case.
Yes,
because you see what ends up happening. Just I'm sure people are aware, but when there is a red rum, they will release certain details about the matter, but there's certain stuff that they will not put in the newspaper.
Right.
And then when they have a conversation with someone who's a suspect, if that person fingers something that was not put out or was not remote, well known, or was not publicized whatsoever, that's a heavy clue. It also gives them the ability to discard people who are coming in and confessing just for no other reason because they're just nuts.
It's a high-profile case.
Right.
It's a high-profile case in the
and they want the
come out.
publicity, so they'll come
Right.
in and they'll say yes, and I used a fillet knife, and they'll say, well, this was a serrated edge and nobody had that in there and everything else, so we know it's not you. So it's a significant fact, and that's really the straw that's stirring the drink of this case. That and the 61 confessions, and not to mention the phone conversations with his mother, phone conversations with his wife, and
well, let's get to the phone conversations now.
Okay.
So some of these alleged confessions are people saying what they heard, but there's also ones that are recorded, and this is one of the early ones. And Caitlin Kendall, incredible reporter for RTV out there in Indiana. You should be following her if you want to follow this case on Twitter. Here she recalls one of the phone calls, and this is to his wife, Kathy, on November 14th, 2022. So this is one of the early ones. Some of the other ones, including the psychologist, are in the spring after he's been in solitaire for quite some time. The phone call begins with Allen telling his wife, Kathy, that he's sorry, but he just needs her to tell the investigators that he will tell them whatever they want. Whatever they want me to say, I'll tell them, commented Allen on the recorded call. I don't want you to worry about me. All I do is worry about you, said Allen. He then referenced wanting to unalive himself. Allen could be heard crying during the call. His wife, Kathy, attempted to console him by saying, you're okay, she said. Then they tell each other how much they love each other. I wish I could see you one more time. I'll see you in the next life. I will. You take care of the family for me, Richard told Kathy. What are you hearing here, Jonesy? What are you hearing in this conversation? What do you think? What do you make of this?
It's hard to say. I mean, it sounds like he's basically saying that he did it, right?
You're hearing it as a confession.
Yeah.
I'll tell them whatever they want.
Yeah. But also that line caught me. I'll tell them whatever they want, as maybe, I'll tell them things that aren't true, kind of thing.
Well,
they want me to confess.
Well, he also, some of the other conversations.
How's that for hedging my bets?
Was very preoccupied with protecting his wife.
Yeah.
I don't want you involved. I don't want, like things along those lines. It seems like he was being very protective of her, and by confessing, that would then take the onus off of her, or the attention off of her, or anything else that could possibly happen regarding her, because we all know that in these kind of cases, the next of kin is generally going to be investigated, because what did they know? Did they can keep this fact quiet or anything along those lines? So there is issues that could come into play, and I do think he was trying to protect her.
Okay.
The way
let me say something else though, and again, more context. When he's a free man and he's being questioned in his interrogation, he denies it. He denies it to the point that he gets angry that he's being accused. Okay, it's very confrontational. He's very angry. He's admitting nothing. Once he's in custody, things change. That's all of these confessions are after he's in custody. Now, here's a phone call from the spring now, after he's been held in solitaire for all this time. The phone call starts with Richard Allen saying, hey, are you there? Yes, babe, says Kathy. I did it, said Allen. What? Questioned Athlete. No, I did it. Abby and Libby, said Allen.
It's interesting that he uses their names.
Yeah, well, this is a small town. It was a big story, and for 5 years it was unsolved. And then Kathy goes, no, you didn't. Allen, Richard, yes, I did. No, you didn't. You're not feeling well. Why did you say that? Because maybe I think I did. No, you didn't. You are messing with your mind. Don't you ever say you did. I think I did, said Allen. No, why would you say that? I think I did. I'll say I did. I don't know.
Wow.
Now, what do you think of it, Jonesy?
So that's a complete twist. It starts off with like sounding like a total confession, but towards the end, like with the I think, and I'll say I did it. This sounds like a guy who's messed up.
Sounds like the little red caboose.
Well, okay. I have a different opinion.
Sure.
Okay. Josie, you done on
Yeah.
what you think? Okay.
Yeah.
So my opinion on it is at this stage of the game, he's starting to get nervous about a deep end. And he's starting to think about that. And what's the best way to get out of a deep end situation is to start feigning mental illness. And you start doing this, I'm crazy, I'm nutsy, I'm this. You start turning the phone calls into these kind of things where you're, basically talking to yourself. I did it. No, I didn't. No, I did. Yes, I did. Who said that? And you get to the point where you were trying to make yourself into a crazy person. Now,
Okay.
there was other stuff going on in the cell with him that is testified to by the doctor, the psychiatrist, and the prison shrink, and is
he's drinking toilet water
and he's eating feces. Okay, so I mean,
and
you've got
paper, like
you know what I mean? That to me, and it's funny because when I was a prosecutor, we had a guy who was up on a bunch of charges and wanted to display that he was not mentally fit to go to trial, and he would take the feces from the toilet and smear it all over his face and his body and everything else, and then write on the wall, "I'm a crazy man." Okay, and believe it or not one prison shrink found him to be mentally unable to stand trial, and we did stand trial, and he was convicted. But eating feces is actually a very, very good way to have people start looking at you a tad askew, as to your mental abilities.
I think before I used the term impacted, and Allison Hallwell on Facebook says I used impact for a different reason. She said in medical terms, it's when someone is literally FOS with a little emoji, a little duty emoji. Thank you, Allison, on the job. So here's the end of this is the way the conversation ends. Kathy's response was, exactly, you don't know. There's something wrong. They're trying to get you to say you did. I want to apologize to the families, Richard says. Just don't talk anymore. I'm sorry. Don't talk anymore. I'm hanging up. Because she knows it's recorded.
They both know.
Yeah.
So Al has a point there with the acting bonkers, if you will. Wackadoodle.
Like this
wackadoodle do.
This is this is the direct evidence in the case. Because
Jonesy, the phrase is actually for him, wackadoodle poo, because then the next
wackadoodle doo-doo
is to go after human feces.
There were other conversations where Richard Allen expressed he was losing his mind. He said he wanted to unalive himself and that he wanted Kathy to understand that he, quote, did it. Kathy repeatedly told Richard he wasn't well. I think I lost my mind. You should know I did it, babe. Allen added that he did not understand what was going on. Kathy replied, neither do I.
But, I mean, it does seem to me that he is now realizing that, because there are questions he's asking about whether or not he's looking at D-Pen and things along those lines.
Right.
So he's nervous on this. And I mean, he's having conversations with his mother too, and he's afraid mom's not going to love him anymore because he did this.
So the breakdown here is he malingering, right? Is he malingering this mental breakdown at the time that he is giving these confessions?
And the prison shrink thought that and said that she found that he was, kind of exaggerating and things along those lines. And the fact that, he starts out initially blustering and getting mad that, how, I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I always come back to the Shakespearean line, methinks she doth protest too much. And that, sometimes by being as forceful in it, as opposed to sitting there and going, listen, I can tell you how I didn't do it, because on that date at this time, I was in such and such a place, or I was here and I have proof that this was the situation. You try to look at it from a standpoint of what is logically going to be the situation that you need to get yourself out of, as opposed to screaming and yelling because you think if you speak loudly that they're going to say, oh, all right, well, look, he said he didn't do it. Let him go. It doesn't work that way. So, I mean, I have to tell you,
Well, it's one of two things. It's either he's been driven insane, right? Or he's pretending to be insane because he doesn't want to face the ultimate penalty for what he did.
but
The irony of all this is, though, with these confessions, is this is really the only thing that ties him to the scene. Like, there's nothing else. There's no DNA.
Right.
It's not a DNA case. There's no blood. There's none of that. So the only things that tie him to the scene is to the scene. Now, I'm not talking about the bridge. Like when he phones in the tip, that puts him at the bridge. But
Right.
when he confesses, it puts him at the scene where the girls are found. And there's a bullet that is found there.
Right.
There was some very sketchy expert testimony about it that I would not trust beyond a reasonable doubt, because the projectile was not fired. It was just ejected from the nug, and the examiner was not able to replicate the markings on the nug by just ejecting it, and she had to actually fire the nug. So it's not the best ballistic evidence in the case. So that's the other way they're trying to tie him to the scene. So it's really, this is the case. Like, do you believe these confessions beyond a reasonable doubt? If you do, then you're going to convict this guy.
And a white van.
Can we
And the white
call?
van.
Well, that's part of the confession.
Right. Well,
Now, one other fun fact, Jonesy, I'm going to give you about the doctor. Okay.
Okay.
Before she ever spoke to RichardAllen, she was hooked on all the Delphi podcasts.
So
Like,
she's a junior. She
studied this case
investigator.
when it was unsolved before she ever spoke to RichardAllen.
That's not good. She's a junior investigator, and she's probably, and that puts her in a position of maybe like goading him towards wanting to get this information out of him. By the way, can we call a nug a piece? A piece.
Let's call it a
rod,
piece.
or a rod or something like that.
Not a rod. That goes in a whole nother direction there, Jones.
yeah.
A piece. Let's
A
call
gat.
it a piece.
Yeah, a
Call it a
gat.
piece.
In my neighborhood, we call it the gat. You got a gat.
Yeah.
The algorithms aren't smart enough to figure out what a piece is. I like that, Jonesy. Okay. So before we run out of time today, I want to jump into some of the comments today from our loyal viewers and listeners here. And where do I want to start? Like right now I'm looking at comments and I'm 40 minutes behind. So I'm going to go forward a little bit. Oh, let's see. Here's one. Vinny, can you do a poll? Okay. I will. I'm going to put a poll up on my in the community part of the page. So I'm going to work on that in a second. But let me get a question for you guys to talk about.
Well, can I just bring up one thing we didn't mention, was that it was interesting in the trial that the state put up was 11 or 12 days of testimony up on there. And I just want to mention this one thing that you notice in any one of his conversations, in any one of his confessions, in any one of his dialogues with any of law enforcement. There's one word that's not mentioned at all: Odinist. Okay, not mentioned by him. Not saying I'm afraid of them. Not saying they're coming to get me. That I'm doing this because forces inside the jail are going to take care of me if I don't do it. Things along those lines. No one mentioned the term Odinist, which I think is very significant. And that, for them to come in and use that as some sort of a deflective strategy is, I agree with the judge. It should not come in. It should not come in whatsoever.
Well, let's remember that there was several members of the task force that was tasked with solving this case that believed it was odinous.
Okay, but you don't hear it from him. Okay, he doesn't. At any,
He's saying he didn't do it. I'm not an odinist. I had nothing to do with it. They did, not you. They did it. The odinist over there did it, and I'm not an odinist. So why would he be talking about odinist?
Doesn't mention that to mom. Doesn't mention that to the wife. Doesn't mention that to anything. None of them come up and say, "Listen, he was a member of this organization, or he was afraid of this organization." That's my point. My point is that's why that shouldn't even come in, and I'm glad that the judges kept it out.
But they're saying someone else did it. They're saying the odinist did it in this ritualistic unaliving.
But see, I would have more feeling of, okay, that makes sense if he says, listen, if these guys are that ensconced in the jail and in the neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, why isn't someone getting to him saying, listen, you're going to make sure you take credit for this, because if you don't, we're going to knock out your whole family. Okay, none of that's happened. And the other thing about it that was brought up,
it's time to get funky. It's time for us to smile, because here comes McSpunky.
All right, McSpunky is here. LOL, ladies. I'll be coming up soon, I'm sure. And yes, you are. There he is with a big smile for us today. It's a way to cleanse our palate. A little McSpunky.
One other point that the state brought up was his Google searches. Okay. And it was a pretty macabre search for things that, the most gruesome type of kidnapping humanly possible, the most disturbing movie regarding victims on Netflix and things along those lines. This was his Google search. And that, is very telling to me about the mindset of this individual.
Okay. I get it. But you have to believe. If you don't trust these confessions, you can't convict this guy because there's not enough evidence. But if you trust
I'm sorry, Jonesy, go.
I wasn't really going to say anything, but I was just thinking, have you guys ever, when you're Googling things, whether it be for investigating trials and cases, have you ever thought about, like, if they looked at our Googles, like if the authorities had a reason to look at our Googles?
It's so funny that you just said that, because I was just going to say that, to do this and to, when I'm on with Vinny on Monday nights from 8 to 9, okay, on Court TV, we Google some of the most gruesome and horrendous types of things you could possibly find. Sometimes just to see what would have come up if we did, if somebody was Googling that. And you're right. I mean, if anyone gets a hold of this thing, we're all going.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me tell you about Albert Wunsch. This man is sick. Do you want to see his Google searches?
Is it not monstrous that this man has put in every conceivable type of murder humanly possible?
I mean, sometimes when I'm texting people, and I'm clowning around and stuff like that, I write something like, let's welcome the NSA into our conversation because of the type of things that I'll be saying. I mean, they're innocent and all that, but if it's true that people are watching, and in the case of a Google, if somebody investigates you, I mean, last night what they would find out is I Googled, how do I know if avocados are bad? That's not so incriminating.
No, but your text messages to me that always start off with, what are you wearing, can be deemed to be incriminating in some respects.
Well, I'm more intrigued now that I know that you dressed as a lady during on Court TV during Halloween once.
That was no lady. That was Sacagawea.
And a big good morning to Gen X, keeping order in the chat.
Order in the chat. Order in the chat. Don't dare attack. We've got order in this chat. The Mod Squad is on the job, helping us to keep it clean. The Mod Squad is on the job, always always so nice and never mean. So let's give it up and say hello to the three amazing ladies running the show. Gen X, let's make some noise. Frankie Figs, let's clap our hands. And Jennifer Sue Bay, let's raise the roof. Order in the chat, order in the chat. Don't dare attack, we
On the
got
job, we
order
thank
in
them
this
for the
chat.
amazing work that they do each and every show.
I
Thank
love that. That is so old school.
you.
Yes. It's like the Mills brothers are singing it for us, which
Yes.
is like really kind of nice. Or Basil Fomine, you know,
Basil
like that,
Fomine, right?
that kind
Little
of a-
Jack Little. Little Jack
Little
Little.
Jack Little. That's exactly right. It's a nice
You know,
little.
all those things that Ralph
Spike
Cramton,
Jones. Spike Jones.
all of those musicians that Ralph and you would know this, all the musicians that Ralph and Norton, which is what you referred to, mentioned during that scene are real artists.
Yep, of course. Well, Jackie
They
Gleason. had
sound
his
made
own-
up because they're funny, you know.
All right. Al Darcy's upset. I'm sick that we would hold a man in the shoe before he is convicted. That is not the world I want to live in. Shame on the state.
Okay. Well, if a person is in the shoe, okay,
He
and a
was.
really
in
big
the
shoe, okay, you're there for a reason. And if you are going to allege that you're going to off oneself, then if that's the situation, you need to be put into solitary. That's the way it works. Okay, that's the way it works. Because if it doesn't work that way, and that person does off themselves, then we have a situation that happened with a certain multi-gazillionaire that offed himself mysteriously, despite the fact being on a suicide watch.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is what happens, folks. Unfortunately, it's not perfect, but it's the only way to guarantee that that person does not off himself. That's
Okay. So you're saying it's for his own good.
Yes.
You're in the shoe for your own good.
And that one guy looks like Jonesy. Jonesy, you better,
Okay. Can you explain this though?
yes, I can explain that. Take a look at descriptions that they gave of Son of Sam. Take a look at descriptions they've given of a number of different serial red rummers. Okay. No one gets it right. All right. And there has always been a situation with regards to the least, okay, of a dependable testimony is generally eyewitnesses. Okay. With regards to descriptions and trying to work with someone and going forward on things. So, I mean, I have a very, very close friend who is a former police officer, retired, who is a sketch artist. And he tells me the same thing every time. He goes, very rarely do they get it on point. So,
All right. Here's Lauren
Al,
Katie.
Al, I would never be caught. I wouldn't be caught unalive wearing that hat.
that's how I know it's not you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, they found
Although
no.
there was a photograph that existed if I were on trial that's on my website of me wearing such a hat, but it's because somebody put it on my head just before the photo was snapped. So
Oh,
before
you could use that as
before the-
evidence.
Before
You
the
was
person
framed.
sketch artist.
you was framed.
I
All
was
right.
framed.
Let's address this. They found no child porn on any of his devices. Okay. And he just decided one day when he's 50 something to go SA2 girls and red rum them. That doesn't add up for me. How does a guy at age 50 all of a sudden turn into this?
Well,
I think a lot of people are
Dave-
wondering that.
Okay, so Dave Herman, a very famous, and this is a sad story because radio is near and dear to my heart. Dave Herman was the morning man on the New York City rock and roll radio station for like 50 years or something like that, close to it. And he, at the age of 80, and I know the FBI agent who like snagged him at the airport, started writing to what he thought was a mother who was going to send her child of like 5 or 6. And they arrested him at the airport with a dolly in his hand that he had brought for her. And the FBI agent, a friend of mine, works for Southside, said that, it really saddened him because he grew up listening to this guy. And now suddenly at the age of 80, never had a charge against him about anything like that. He finds himself at an airport to pick up a child, and he ends up dying in Eastern Penit, whatever Rawway became.
Right.
We do see this. We do see that happens sometimes with age. And I'm not saying necessarily 50, but I mean, I have had cases where, grandfather types that, start getting a little fidgety and end up having problems with regards to that had no prior
history. It's
no history of that. So, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it's common, but it's not necessarily uncommon. And the fact that there is nothing there doesn't mean that he doesn't have these disturbances. I mean, at least he's smart enough not to be, playing with it on at his household, but it doesn't necessarily.
But you know who did have the child corn?
Yes.
The man, Keegan Klein, who was communicating with these two girls. And this is my question. I mean, these poor girls, and if you believe the state's case, these poor girls were communicating online with a child corn guy who lived locally, and this is a community of less than 3,000, and then are attacked by someone who wants to essay them, like in that same neighborhood and within a couple of days of each other. Like, that coincidence is so chilling in a small town of less than 3,000. Like, how does that happen? Green-eyed PI asking a question: why was the FBI turned away? No DNA and grainy photo. Many others could be the bridge guy, in my opinion. And speaking of hats, Jonesy, what do you think of that hat?
What hat? Oh, that hat. That's actually fabulous.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you, Green Eyed. So it's amazing that the picture of Bridge Guy, he was way in the background of a photo. So the reason it's so grainy is they had to blow it up so the pixels are, blown up, and it's just blurry enough that it's consistent, but not definitive, right? It's consistent with this defendant, but not definitive. What do you think of this matchup of the sketch here? I think that's a better matchup. Yeah. But investigators were telling us, don't go by this one, go by the other one. Investigators said, disregard this sketch.
Well, the other one's got a skinnier face. That's the one that you took down.
He's also like 20 years younger.
Well, why don't you just make like 100 sketches, and then eventually, when you get somebody, like, tell everybody,
then it'll match.
Ignore these other ones.
But it's two different witnesses, so two different sketches. And investigators told the public, disregard this sketch. And it turns out this is the sketch that's obviously much more consistent with the defendant, more consistent than the one on the right.
Ignore that sketch before they got him, or after?
Well, yeah, before they caught him. So they hadn't made an arrest. They didn't know who. They didn't know. They had no theory on who did it. They were telling everyone it's the guy on the right. The guy on the right. So you look at the guy on the right. Looks nothing like the guy.
Just excuse me for 1 minute. I just to go off camera for 1 second. I'm sorry.
Jonesy. So who does the guy on the right look like to you?
I've got nothing on that. Like
Justin Timberlake.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It's Justin Timberlake.
It is Justin Timberlake.
Like, even the eyebrows are the same.
The eyebrows are perfect. Wouldn't it be hysterical? I mean, I know this is a serious case, but wouldn't it be hysterical if the person, like, purposely, like, when the sketch artist was working with them, like, drew a picture of Justin Timberlake?
Because they were Backstreet fans and not in sync. McSpunky paying his penance for offering a lovely day for you all. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get funky like a monkey.
Indeed. All right, we're going to get to a couple more before we run. We're going to run out of time here. Also, Green-Eyed saying that they're in solitary for a year and drugged with Haldol, antipsychotic. You'd say anything, in my opinion, and that's really the problem. Is that you've got to trust it. You've got to trust it, because there's nothing else to really corroborate that. Although he puts himself at the scene. Why do you think he called the tip line? He called the tip line after the still image of the bridge guy was released. the image on the left here. That image is released, and then he calls the tip line.
Once again, because you think it's going to take the scent off of you. Okay, maybe that's the situation. Maybe he was saying to himself, you know what? You're in a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So, you know, it's going to be a situation that's going to eventually come up to him. And if you don't go to the police at that point, then what do you got to hide? Maybe that's the thought he had.
Yeah. And if he doesn't come forward, never gets arrested.
Probably not. Probably
never
not.
gets arrested.
That in Odin We Trust logo flag that you just showed, you know, the things at the bottom right corner look like hazard signs. It's kind of a strange little flag or logo they have there.
Yeah, that's their official logo for the Odin. By the way, there were I believe 3 of the guards were Odinists and wore their Odinist patches on their uniforms.
Okay,
I don't know how they could possibly do that.
Are any of those guards the ones that said that he confessed or anything like that?
I do not believe so.
I don't know how they can. I mean, I can tell you this: that police officers and corrections officers, you know, have a very regimented uniform that has to be worn, and you're not allowed to put anything on there that is not basically issued by the government.
Yeah, but not in Indiana. But they after this whole incident, they changed their policy.
So what's to stop like the other guards from putting like, you know, a clan like you know, or
well, they say it's a religion.
Are we allowed to say Nazi on Nazis on?
No, I would stay away from that.
Yeah,
newsy, a news. But I think it'd be more like putting a cross or a Star of David.
But that's not on your uniform. They're allowed to wear that as a necklace, and actually, in some departments, do not allow any jewelry whatsoever because it's a potential weapon that could be used against the officer.
Right.
You know, so they're very strict about that kind of stuff. About anything that could be dangling. I mean, you know, earrings, anything that could possibly be used as a weapon against the officer is not permitted to be worn. I've never seen any officer with a Star of David or with a cross or anything along those lines that is outside, with the exception of maybe the, you know, obviously, well, they're not officers. I was going to say, you know, the priest that works at the jail or the minister that works at the jail.
Father Frank Jr.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so that type of situation might be where they would be able to, but they're not allowed to wear any type of jewelry in the prison. So
Gringa, I'll say whatever they want me to say, definitely does not imply a false confession. Anything said to his wife should be taken with a grain of salt.
Well, isn't it the first person you're going to be saying you didn't do it to? You know, because you don't want the wife leaving you, okay, or whatever the situation is. Aren't you always going to say, listen, I didn't do it. They got the wrong guy. This is ridiculous. I very rarely hear people go, you know what, it was me, unless they want out of the marriage. I mean, everybody I know of is going to go, it wasn't me. It doesn't. I know I was caught with all the evidence.
So you believe the confession you believe the confessions to the wife?
I do. I believe and to the mother. And I believe and the story, the plausible story he gave to the doctor, to the shrink, okay, makes sense under the circumstances. So
Julio, judge would not allow the 3 a.m. call of him saying it is Gitmo in there. He is losing his mind, etc. Shrink was fired, by the way.
Yes, we do know that. Okay.
By the prison?
Yeah, but well, because precisely getting too involved in certain things that maybe that person should not have been involved with.
Like this one.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, if she was a junior detective, you know, I mean.
Well, she claims that information had been already disclosed and that everyone knew that and didn't have a problem with her continuing. So, but I don't disagree with what we started. I don't disagree with what we started off with. that the priest penitent, lawyer client, and doctor patient privileges are sacrosanct and should not be violated under any stretch of the imagination.
Jonesy, I was just thinking, remember you're talking about your text messages, but even with our podcast, if someone's just zooming by and clicks on us right now and sees the three of us here sitting underneath in Odin We Trust.
It would make a great political commercial if one of us was running for office, right?
Don't vote for Jonesy. He's an Odinist. But actually, I had an Odinist on my show, and they were very nice. And there's extremists in every religion and organization that goes off the ranch a little bit. Sure. Cindy Ruiz with a like a professional photo here. Why are you not in Delphi covering this? Your comment to Bob the other night in Closing Arguments got me thinking you're thinking of going. Also, why have you not had Andrea Burkhart on VPI yet? A lot of questions, Cindy. I'm going to write them down. First one, Andrea Burkhart. Okay. Not going to Delphi. It's complicated. You just can't get up and go. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to putting my show on the road. It's a big setup, Jonesy. When I go out on the road, first of all, I need a trailer just to change in.
Yes, you need
stocked with only yellow and brown M&Ms.
Absolutely,
and good restaurants nearby.
Good restaurants.
Another trailer that's your gymnasium. You're traveling
my gymnasium, so I can, continue to work out. So it's a big deal when I go.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I remember
when we did Karen Reed, we did it live from the local pizzeria. It was amazing.
Right. Well, you and I did a live remote for that New Jersey Net who was on trial for Red
Jason
Rumble.
Williams.
Yep, Jason Williams. I was part of that live remote too. They had the whole thing set up, and I couldn't get makeup because certain female members of Court TV staff were hogging up everything.
Well, we did a morning radio show from I believe a bakery across from the courthouse. In fact, I was just there the other day, and I didn't see the bakery. I don't know if they survived.
All right. So, Cindy, thank you so much. We'll see if I go out there. I don't know. Things are wrapping up quickly. I'll have to talk. I got to talk to a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, but thank you so much. And I took down the name Andrea Burkhart. Yobi Trice, the eyewitness for the state, the eyewitness for the state claiming bridge guy was around 5'10", gave enough reasonable doubt for me. A 5'4" person is very noticeable.
Okay. So he's 5'4"?
5'4".
Huh.
No, once again, I still think that there is just way too many, there's too many confessions in this to people that I would ordinarily be saying, I'm innocent. I didn't do this. Get me out of here. And the fact that he starts getting worried about DPAN and a number of other things demonstrates to me that he was trying to make himself.
Okay. All right. Julio says, but the Karen Reed case says Google isn't accurate. I love how I think in almost every stream I do, there's at least a handful of Karen Reed comments every time.
Did you know that avocados, when they get brown, that doesn't mean that they're bad. That means that they're good. I was throwing them out before I Googled it.
Oh, no.
Of course, they got to be soft. That's the one that is softest.
The only way you know if an avocado is bad is you got to open it up, because there could be ones that feel like they're perfect and they could be spoiled. And there's ones that could feel like they're spoiled and you're like, wow.
I'm new to this healthy eating world.
Haldol injections didn't help, Al.
What? I'm sorry?
Haldol injections he was getting. So they're drugging him up also. They're putting him in the shoe. They're drugging him up. They're isolating him. They keep the lights on him 24/7 for 13 months.
Yep. Well, don't say you're going to off yourself, okay?
Yobi Trice.
A lesson for everyone to learn. And you know what? And I know there's such a thing as false confessions, but guess what? Okay, there is a lot of things called true confessions too. Okay,
yeah,
so
true
keep that in
confessions.
My mom used to read that magazine. You know, long before there was true crime TV, there were salacious magazines like True Detective, True Confessions, and stuff like that. My mommy loved them. And then one day I went online and I Googled to see what they looked like for memory's sake. There were pictures of women with their bras around their throat and you couldn't see. But this is the stuff my dear mommy, who would have been 84 today.
Wow.
Well, next thing the people, God, she's going to be 84 today. That would have been her birthday today.
Yeah.
God bless.
94.
Even more.
All right, guys.
Well, wait a minute. Let me just say this. Based on that, then you're telling me that those Penthouse Forum letters are not true?
Well, I did have one incident that seemed like it was right out of there, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, we're way short on time because I have to run here. But Yobi talking about Epstein and Aaron Hernandez were able to do it while they were in prison. Julie O, same prison, has been sued for 8th Amendment violations. He is legally innocent unless proven guilty, not until. There's a split. I put the poll up. Oh, we got April Diaz. Just wishing you guys a great weekend. I made the last 15 minutes, as Case has said. Thank you so much, April. Appreciate it.
Every prison has probably been sued for that.
Yeah. Kaz, didn't he confess to unaliving his wife and grandchildren that he didn't do? Yeah, he made confessions to things that he didn't do. He did confess to cheating on cigarette. This dude was broken. And that's the way many people are seeing it. And that's the way the defense is going to argue it. 843 Amy, happy weekend to all. And let me just check the poll just to see what the votes were on guilty, not guilty on this one. 1 second. I have to find it. Got to refresh. We'll see how many people voted. Refreshing. All right. It's a split. It's 58-42 not guilty right now. 58-42 not guilty, but there's not a ton of votes up there. So we've got the poll up. Thank you to everyone. I literally have to run. I'm going to be late for a meeting. It's about that time. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you for the super chats. 1 second. I'm just looking for – oh, here we go. That's it. Tonight, 8 to 10 on Court TV, you'll see me, Al, Legal Weapon, Jonesy. What's the name of the website again?
GlennJones.net.
GlennJones.net. That's it for us, folks. Wait. Oh, my goodness. Where is it? I'm losing my mind. Here it is.
See, it happens.
Say goodbye, Jonesy.
Goodbye, Jonesy.
Vinny and the Tangents, True Crime Podcast. Vinny has the blue eyes, Al cracks the jokes. Jonesy stays behind his shades, entertaining all the folks. It's Vinny and the Tangents, True Crime Podcast. Load up all your comments, hit those super chats. Let's go smash that like button, so we can all have a blast. Vinny, Allen, Jonesy on the job. They're the Sugar Hill Gang of true crime. They're telling stories of days gone by. They take crime and turn into a good old time. It's Vinny and the Tangents.